because my next guest just testified before a federal grand jury. He says he was in possession of a trove of digital evidence from Diddy's freak-offs and parties.
Combs' legal team vehemently denied the accusations on his behalf, while the rapper continues to be held in a Brooklyn jail since September, awaiting.
The story of Diddy Combs and his mother Janice delves deeply into the intricacies of familial ties, legacy, and the shadow of an unusual upbringing. However, in recent years, rumors have surfaced that Janice may have been arrested by the FBI on suspicion of orchestrating or enabling some of the very behaviors that have put Diddy at the center of scandal. This has left everyone wondering how much Janice knew and whether she could have influenced her son's decisions. This story's layers are fascinating, disorganized, and very startling.
Certainly there's a lot of information that needs to be substantiated, investigated, and those kinds of things. But when we look at people who become offenders, we oftentimes see early exposure to whether that's or actual behavior, and we oftentimes see that within the family.
We must go back in time to when Combs was a young child growing up in Mount Vernon, New York, under the care of a single mother who was committed to giving him everything the world had to offer in order to comprehend how we got here. After losing her husband Melvin in the early 1970s, G, a former model and teacher's assistant, took the reins and did everything she could to raise her son in a way that protected him from the harsher realities of their world. However, as new accusations surfaced regarding the upbringing Sean received, it's possible that this shielding wasn't as successful as she had hoped.
You know, that kind of environment growing up in is going to have an impact on a child growing up. Now, it doesn't make excuses for what people do in adulthood, and the form that can take really depends on a lot of different things, including things such as what are the family values? Are the family values about, being open and honest about things, or if there's trauma in a family, do families deal with it, or how is that child?
A recent documentary and insiders claim that Scene's boyhood home wasn't picture perfect. Suburban haven, as it may have seemed at first glance, Janice reportedly enjoyed throwing extravagant parties at their home. These were not your usual family reunions. Guests would come from all walks of life, some from the streets of Harlem, others from the world of glamour and excess. And although young Shao was frequently hidden away in another area of the house, it was said that the excitement and antics of these parties left a lasting impression on him.
Another question that we just can't ignore is the fact as a role of power. Because one question is, how does somebody become the way they are? And then another question is, how are they allowed to stay the way that they are? And I think that also speaks to this kind of, lack of accountability.
Tim Patterson, a childhood friend of Scene Diddy Combs, shared some intriguing anecdotes in the Peacock documentary Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy. Patterson described the parties at Janice's home as anything but ordinary. He recalled an atmosphere of constant activity, with people lounging in various states of undress, loud music echoing through the space, and an air thick with reckless indulgence. For a young Scene and his friends, this was simply their version of normal. As Patterson put it, that was just Saturday night. However, reflecting on it now, he believes these experiences may have desensitized them to certain behaviors and blurred the boundaries of what was considered acceptable.
Pretty early in the proceedings. I think it's only been about a month or a month and a half since he's been arraigned and held in detention. And so the investigations are always going to be a continuous and ongoing process. I'm sure at this point there's been an exchange of discovery, and not only that, but I think there's been a gag order placed on the attorneys with information that they can and cannot share. But more important,
this environment may offer insights into understanding Diddy's later years, particularly the infamous freak-offs described in court documents and testimonies. These events allegedly mirrored the atmosphere of those early house parties, with striking parallels that are hard to ignore. The same sense of unrestrained excess, the same array of colorful personalities, and the same blurred boundaries. While Janice has adamantly denied any wrongdoing or influence on her son's adult life, the comparisons between Diddy's notorious gatherings and the parties of his youth are enough to raise eyebrows.
Bring another push to free Sean Diddy Combs tonight, with his legal team citing new evidence in an updated bail proposal. The music mogul agreeing to around-the-clock security and cutting out contact with basically anyone but his legal team to get out of jail ahead of his trial scheduled for May of next year for charges he allegedly coerced and abused women for years.
One of the most striking revelations from Patterson's account was the sheer variety of people who passed through the Combs household during those parties. He described how Scene grew up surrounded by individuals from all walks of life, some from the world of glamour, others from more dangerous circles. Patterson even hinted at moments when they would stumble into private rooms and witness things no child should ever see. This paints a picture of a young boy exposed to an adult world far too soon, a world where boundaries seemed non-existent. Patterson now questions whether this early exposure to unrestrained indulgence played a role in shaping Diddy's controversial lifestyle later on. It's worth noting that Janice has always been fiercely protective of her son. She worked tirelessly to put him through private school and even relocated the family to a safer neighborhood to give him the best chance at success. Yet, despite her best intentions, it's evident that the duality of Scene's upbringing, the polished exterior of a private school education, juxtaposed with the chaotic energy of those weekends at home, created a complex foundation for the man he would ultimately become.
If he does this new, quote, robust bail package, you can avoid and evade. And he is very connected with people that can help him avoid and evade. I'm not saying he will, but I would be surprised if the court grants him a bond. When the federal government wants you detained, you are normally detained. And here it was a very far-reaching situation that he was.
Shane has spoken openly in interviews about how his mother's sacrifices inspire him, often crediting Janice with instilling in him the values of hard work and resilience. However, he has also shared glimpses of his early experiences that hint at a more complicated reality. In one interview, he recalled seeking attention from women as early as 4 or 5 years old, attributing this to moments when his mother's friends would cradle him on their laps. While he has framed these memories as innocent awakenings, critics suggest they reflect how early exposure to adult behaviors may have influenced his perceptions and understanding of relationships.
So remember when I said Diddy mother might be the originator of the freak offs? All right, so apparently tomorrow there's the Peacock is dropping. The Diddy documentary is called Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy, and the doc gets into Diddy's childhood and his experience growing up in connection to the lawsuit and assault allegations he's currently.
The intrigue doesn't end there. As Scene grew older, he began carving out a path that, in many ways, mirrored the chaos of his upbringing. Much like Janice's home, which was a revolving door of colorful personalities, Scene's adult life became defined by extravagant parties and larger-than-life personas. He built an empire centered on the art of indulgence. However, as recent allegations suggest, the lines between celebration and exploitation may have become perilously blurred.
That's it. If it is privilege, of course they won't. But if it really is what the prosecution says, that has nothing to do with the case, or even worse, it's actually evidence of witness tampering, because we all know the attorney-client privilege, there's a crime fraud exception. You can't use your lawyer to perpetuate a future or continuing fraud or crime. So if the documents are what the government says they are, they're going to get them again. And again, it's just going to be a matter of days, because I don't.
The connections between Janice's rumored arrest and the allegations against Diddy remain murky at best. While no official confirmation of her involvement exists, the mere speculation has added yet another layer of complexity to an already tangled web. Could Janice have been aware of the alleged activities occurring at her son's events? Did her own past parties inadvertently set a precedent for the behaviors he's now accused of? These lingering questions have fueled the rumor mill in recent weeks, adding to the intrigue surrounding the story.
So there's a few things going on. First is the privilege issue. The judge will decide whether the documents are privileged or not. If they're not, they're going to go to the government. If the documents are not only not privileged, but they're evidence of witness tampering, then a few things can happen, all of which are bad for Sean Diddy Combs. First, of course, he could face obstruction of justice charges in a superseding indictment.
It's also important to consider how Janice has navigated the public eye throughout this ordeal. she has been vocal in defending her son, describing the allegations against him as a public lynching, and urging the public to withhold judgment until all the facts are revealed. In her statement, she acknowledged that Scene is not perfect and has made mistakes in the past, but stopped short of addressing the more serious accusations directly. Critics have noted that her defense seems to tread a fine line between support and denial, leaving room for interpretation. As new details emerge, the spotlight has increasingly shifted to Diddy's upbringing and the role it may have played in shaping his adult life. On the surface, his childhood appeared idyllic. A young boy dressed to impress, attending private school, and playing Little League baseball. However, beneath the polished exterior lay a world of chaos and contradictions. Patterson's accounts, combined with Diddy's own admissions about his early experiences, paint a picture of a boy caught between two worlds, one of structure and opportunity, and another of unrestrained indulgence.
According to the Rolling Stone, the doc features an alleged childhood friend of Puff's, hip-hop producer Tim Dog Patterson. He alleged that Janice, Diddy's mom, would often throw parties at Diddy's childhood home. He says that during the parties, it wasn't uncommon to walk into rooms where adults was having. That was just there.
The lasting impact of these experiences is difficult to measure, but the parallels between Diddy's childhood and his adult life are undeniable. Themes of freedom, excess, and blurred boundaries weave through both narratives, creating a through line that connects the boy from Mount Vernon to the mogul now sitting in a Brooklyn detention center. Whether Janice's rumored arrest will produce any concrete evidence of her involvement remains uncertain, but the mere possibility has already ignited a firestorm of speculation.
Live, a judge has denied bail for Sean Diddy Combs. Of course, this was the hip-hop mogul's latest bid for freedom as he remains in federal jail for his racketeering and sex trafficking case.
The story of Scene Diddy Combs and the controversies now surrounding him isn't just about one man. It's about a network, a system, and a circle of individuals whose roles in his world are as complex as they are intriguing. The question isn't solely what Diddy did or didn't do. It's also about who may have enabled him, who turned a blind eye, and who is speaking out now that the empire he built seems to be crumbling. But make no mistake, this isn't just about the glitz and glamour of fallen music mogul. It's about a web of relationships that stretches back decades, encompassing those closest to him and the people now at the center of lawsuits and criminal investigations. Let's look at the people in Diddy's orbit. Over the years, his associates have included childhood friends, high-profile executives, romantic partners, and employees who have described working for him as nothing short of chaotic. Tim Patterson has vividly detailed their early years together, but his more recent revelations have left many questioning just how deep his involvement in Diddy's world might go. Was Patterson merely a bystander, or did he play a role in enabling the behaviors he now appears to condemn? That's a question both the public and perhaps investigators are still trying to answer.
Not buying it all, Kana, and safety can mean a couple of different things. Safety just doesn't mean free from harm of violence. Safety can also too means emotional and mental dynamics that could occur by Sean Combs reaching out to potential witness to get them to.
Then there's the inner circle of employees who worked closely with Diddy throughout his career. Former bodyguards, assistants, and even chefs have come forward with alarming stories about what went on behind closed doors. Among the most shocking accounts is one from Roger Bonds, a former bodyguard who claims to have witnessed Diddy's explosive temper firsthand. Bonds alleges he once intervened in a physical altercation involving Cassie Ventura, stepping in to defuse the situation. While Bonds has been vocal about his experiences, others within Diddy's circle have remained far more reluctant to speak out. Why? Some speculate it's due to fear of retaliation, while others suggest they may have been complicit in covering up questionable behavior.
Sides in the Sean Diddy Combs case have until today to give answers for how the music mogul has been communicating from jail. Combs appearing in court last Friday seeking bail while he awaits trial. He's been held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn since September.
The lawsuits against Diddy paint a troubling picture of his relationships with those around him, including former romantic partners and employees. Cassie Ventura, who was in a high-profile relationship with Diddy for over a decade, was one of the first to file a lawsuit that set off a chain reaction. Her claims, which include allegations of manipulation and exploitation, have been echoed by others who have since come forward. What makes these allegations even more alarming is the sheer volume of them. Over 40 civil lawsuits have been filed, with more expected to follow. Tony Busby, a prominent attorney representing many of the accusers, has described the allegations as part of a broader pattern that spans decades. According to Busby, the individuals coming forward include both men and women, many of whom claim they were coerced or pressured into compromising situations.
A video of Diddy's family arriving to court for last Friday's hearing. Prosecutors arguing that he misused prison systems in an attempt to tamper with potential witnesses, and they say they have proof Diddy used other inmates' phone cards or used three-way calls with friends to contact associates that prosecutors consider to be a...
The lawsuits against Diddy paint a troubling picture of his relationships with those around him, including former romantic partners and employees. Cassie Ventura, who was in a high-profile relationship with Diddy for over a decade, was one of the first to file a lawsuit that set off a chain reaction. Her claims, which include allegations of manipulation and exploitation, have been echoed by others who have since come forward. What makes these allegations even more alarming is the sheer volume of them. Over 40 civil lawsuits have been filed, with more expected to follow. Tony Busby, a prominent attorney representing many of the accusers, has described the allegations as part of a broader pattern that spans decades. According to Busby, the individuals coming forward include both men and women, many of whom claim they were coerced or pressured into compromising situations.
Denying these claims and is pushing for his release under strict conditions, including a $50 million bond and 24/7 monitoring at a secured Manhattan apartment. There will be a hearing today where both sides will have a chance to clarify exactly how Combs has been connecting with the world outside his jail.
The question of who else might be implicated in these events looms large. While Diddy is undoubtedly the central figure in this story, it's clear he didn't operate in isolation. Reports suggest that certain members of his inner circle may have played active roles in organizing and facilitating these gatherings, while others may have been aware of what was happening but chose to remain silent. The full extent of their involvement remains unclear, but one thing is undeniable. This wasn't a one-man operation. If Diddy's empire was built on a foundation of indulgence and power, it's certain that others helped him maintain it. One of the more unsettling aspects of this story is the involvement of individuals who were initially drawn to Diddy's orbit because of his charisma and influence. Take Kat Payne, a former romantic partner, who has recently come forward with her own allegations. Payne has described moments that left her questioning the man she thought she knew, including an incident where Diddy allegedly made a chilling comment about a controversial figure in the music industry. According to Payne, this comment, made while watching a documentary, left her deeply unsettled. It wasn't until later that she began to fully understand its implications. Her account, like so many others, raises questions about how Diddy's behavior was perceived by those closest to him, and why so many people stayed silent for so long.
Talking about the parties, Tim says, verbatim, that's what we were privy to. This was what we were fed. Was it desensitizing us? I'm sure it was. Were we aware of it? No, that was just Saturday night. In the doc, per Rolling Stone, this type of childhood is alleged to be why Tim, the longtime friend of Diddy's, Puff believes that Puff found himself in the position he is in now.
The lawsuits and criminal charges against Diddy have sparked a flood of revelations about his past, but they've also cast a spotlight on the broader culture of the entertainment industry. Many of the individuals coming forward have shared feelings of being trapped in a system that valued power and profit over accountability. This isn't just about Diddy. It's about an industry long accused of enabling bad behavior. The key question now is whether this moment will spark meaningful change or whether it will fade away, like so many scandals before it.
You know, if you say the wrong thing or you complain or I don't know, there's an element where you're just, I guess manipulated in a way to make you feel like, oh, you have to please everyone around you. You say anything wrong. You don't want to say a bad thing, or when they're constantly asking, would you like to do drugs? And you're like, well, I don't do drugs. And they're like, well, why don't you do drugs?
Experts have weighed in on what the future might hold for Diddy, and the outlook isn't promising. If convicted on the criminal charges, he could face significant prison time, potentially up to life. Even if he manages to avoid a conviction, the damage to his reputation and career may be irreparable. Legal analysts have pointed out that the sheer number of lawsuits and the severity of the allegations make this one of the most high-profile cases in recent memory. Some speculate that Diddy's legal team may try to settle as many civil cases as possible to avoid prolonged public scrutiny, but that strategy carries its own risks. Settling could be viewed as an admission of guilt and may do little to repair his already tarnished reputation. The fallout from these allegations isn't just affecting Diddy, it's also impacting those who were once closely associated with him. Former collaborators, business partners, and even friends have distanced themselves from the mogul in recent months. Some have issued public statements condemning his alleged behavior, while others have quietly severed ties. The ripple effect of this scandal is far-reaching, affecting everyone from employees at his companies to celebrities who were once part of his inner circle.
Flight was always going to be a tough argument for the government because obviously Combs voluntarily came to New York. He surrendered his passports through his lawyer. He could have fled after the March raids of his Miami and Los Angeles homes, but he didn't. He has access to 2 private jets. I think it was a tougher argument. I know the government made the argument, but clearly the best argument was the dangerousness and the witness tampering. They had much more evidence.
As all of this unfolds, one of the most pressing questions is whether Diddy's empire can survive. Bad Boy Records, once a powerhouse in the music industry, has already been overshadowed by newer labels and artists. Diddy's other ventures, including his work in fashion and media, are also at risk. The allegations against him have cast a long shadow over his entire brand, and it remains uncertain whether it can ever fully recover. For a man who built his career on being larger than life, the prospect of losing everything must be a bitter pill to swallow. But perhaps the most compelling aspect of this story is the human element, the individuals who have come forward to share their experiences, often at great personal risk. Their courage has sparked a broader conversation about accountability and power, one that reaches far beyond Diddy's specific case. Whether or not he is ultimately found guilty, their stories have already made a lasting impact, forcing the industry to confront its complicity in allowing these behaviors to persist.
Is illustrating is this completely out of control party on a super yacht, including various celebrities, that when you read it, it kind of rings true. I mean, when you read it, it doesn't come off as being something that's completely unbelievable. You have to take into consideration that
as the trial date approaches, the world will be watching closely to see how this story unfolds. Will more people come forward? Will Diddy's legal team manage to poke holes in the prosecution's case? And what will happen to the individuals who were once part of his inner circle? These are the questions that remain unanswered, and they're the ones keeping people talking. For now, all we can do is wait and see what the next chapter of this story will bring. As the saga of Sean Diddy Combs and his mother, Janice, continues to evolve, viewers are left with more questions than answers. How much did Janice truly know about her son's controversial lifestyle? Could her influence have shaped his choices? Furthermore, what role did Diddy's childhood environment play in his adult life? The lines between celebration and exploitation seem increasingly blurred, and the public is eager to weigh in. What are your thoughts on Janice's alleged involvement? Do you believe Diddy's upbringing set the stage for his later controversies? Share your opinions in the comments below. Until next time, stay tuned for more celebrity gossip and intriguing stories.